weekend on the campaign trail. So more of my first reads here. If you thought the 24 midterms would be a little dull, think again. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell spent his first real day on the campaign trail Saturday at the 133rd Fancy Farm Political Forum in Kentucky, one of the great political events in this country, where for the first time McConnell faced his challengers head-on. The raucous forum, known for the cheering and jeering, didn't disappoint McConnell, fending off a two-pronged attack. He was the first of the Senate candidates to speak, and he kicked things off with a jab at his Democratic opponent, Allison Lundgren Grimes.
I want to say how nice it is to see Jerry Lundgren back in the game. Like the loyal Democrat he is, he's taking orders from the Obama campaign on how to run his daughter's campaign. They told him to make a pitch on the internet for the women's vote, and he sent a check to Anthony Weiner.
Well, I don't know how well that joke went, but focusing mostly on President Obama, McConnell painted a picture of a liberal Washington, and he touted his leadership role and even tied himself to the junior senator from Kentucky.
The liberals are worried because, just as I predicted, Obamacare is a disaster for America. As long as I'm in the Senate, Kentucky will have a voice instead of San Francisco and Martha's Vineyard. Rand Paul, Ed Whitfield, and I take Kentucky's fight to the liberals every single day.
But his challengers pulled no punches, hitting him from the left and the right. The likely Democratic nominee, Allison Lundgren Grimes, tied McConnell to the Washington gridlock.
If Senator McConnell had his way, his version of Kentucky health care for our seniors' grandmother would be to walk it off. Let's just tell it like it is. If the doctors told Senator McConnell that he had a kidney stone, he'd refuse to pass it.
As somebody who just had a kidney stone, that one sort of hit close to home. Anyway, our Republican primary challenger, Matt Bevin, who has attracted support from some in the Tea Party, attacked McConnell for his stance on the Wall Street bailout, immigration reform, and the economy.
I don't intend to run to the right of Mitch McConnell. I don't intend to run to the left of Mitch McConnell. I intend to run straight over the top of Mitch McConnell and right into the U.S. Senate. And with your help, we're going to do that.
McConnell's folks were hoping neither Grimes nor Bevin would look ready for prime time. The fact is, on first blush, both challengers came off surprisingly fiery. But the weekend showed that McConnell may not be the most vulnerable Republican senator up for re-election. That prize may go to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. On Saturday, Nancy Mace, the first female graduate of the Citadel Military University, announced her plans to run against him in a primary, joining businessman Richard Cash in that race against Graham. She criticized the senior senator for forgetting his conservative principles.
There are Republican senators in the Senate today who believe our Bill of Rights are up for debate. Unfortunately, our senator has a track record of trusting this government, of working to grow this government.
Meanwhile, Graham defended his record and proudly touted his conservative credentials.
I'll continue to be Lindsey Graham, a solid fiscal and social conservative who wants to solve problems. I think that's the future of the Republican Party.
So, with the GOP hoping to win back the Senate in 2014, how vulnerable are some of the party's most prominent players? Let's bring in our Monday gaggle, Executive Director for the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles and former Chief of the U.S. Office of Citizenship for President George W. Bush, Alfonso Aguilar, Democratic consultant with Impact Strategies and former Executive Director of the Congressional Black Caucus, Angela Rye, and, of course, the Washington Post Chief Correspondent, Dan Books. Welcome all. Alfonso, this is two members of your party you're watching here. You know, McConnell getting squeezed left and right, Graham right now squeezed from the right. Just a simple question. Who would you rather be, McConnell or Graham?
Well, I think they're both in tough races, but they both have a lot of political experience. Certainly Mitch McConnell has been in tough races before. When you've been in the Senate for 30 years, it's obviously easy to attack you when Congress is not very popular. But I think at the end, with the support of Rand Paul, and Rand Paul is committed to helping Mitch McConnell, I think he will pull through. Same thing with Lindsey Graham. I think he's got a lot of experience. He knows the state. The folks in the state have a lot of experience with him. So at the end, he'll pull through.
Angela, Democrats very vulnerable in the Senate. There's a fairly easy, logical path for Republicans to get the Senate. But suddenly, if your party's able to upend a Kentucky, it throws the math up.
Sure. I think what's interesting about the Kentucky race is that he's getting a primary challenger with the GOP, but also a Democratic challenger, and he's getting hit from both sides. So it's almost like Mitch McConnell's being painted as a moderate somehow at this point, which is very, very interesting. I certainly can't see it and couldn't see it before this weekend's Fancy Farm, but that's definitely how they're.
Are Democrats going to find a candidate in South Carolina?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. With Jamie's help, they might.
You know, it's interesting, Dan, to watch this race in Kentucky, because I feel like it sort of lumps the entire what's going on here in Washington all in this one race. The fight for the soul of the Republican Party, and you know, McConnell's going to get pressured defunding Obamacare and stuff like that. And then this issue of gridlock. Yeah, is it a resident issue, which, of course, Obama is hoping to make on the campaign trail in 2014?
And it came together so nicely at this Fancy Farm event, which is a grand event. I've never attended it, but it has a history to it. And as we saw from those clips, it is a raucous event. It's a little like Question Time in the British Parliament with people jeering and yelling. And,
it's old school, right? It's back the way politics was practiced 30 and 40 and 50 years ago.
And yet everybody, all three of the candidates really came ready to play. And so it says to you that this race is now teed up in a way that, you know, a week ago or 10 days ago it really wasn't. So the focus on this, and as you say, the implications of this are going to draw an enormous amount of attention.
And this pressure that McConnell's going to feel. You know, Bevin is going to have no qualms. He talked about it in his speech. One of the clips we didn't play had to do with, you know, pressuring McConnell to say, hey, you know, go with Ted Cruz and Mike Lee on this issue of, you know, no budget, you know, no debt ceiling, no budget, none of this, if it includes funding the president's health care plan.
And I think that's the difficulty that Republicans have. You have to show to please your base that you're being principled, that you're following conservative principles, but at the same time you have to show independence and the general American public that you can govern. And right now I think we are, Republicans, losing the messaging battle. The perception is that it is the Republican Party who's being obstructionist, when I think the Democrats are really not willing to work with Republicans to reach consensus. But publicly, I think Republicans are getting blamed.
You know, it's interesting to look at this article today in the New York Times by Jonathan Martin, Angela, having it, all these Republican governors, including Scott Walker, who's not afraid of a battle, saying, oh, whoa, guys, don't shut down the government.
Sure, and part of it is, I think what's most interesting, again, going back to these Senate races, is that these arguments have traditionally been used about congressional districts. They're very gerrymandered, and now you see someone like a Mitch McConnell, someone like a Lindsey Graham facing congressional district-based arguments in their races. With the governors, they're saying, listen, we have to continue to run and govern our state, so there has to be some type of flexibility.
You know, Dan, it's interesting to me, there's no leader of the Republican Party in leadership that seems to be calling for the shutdown strategy. And yet you get the sense that Republicans aren't confident they can avoid this. It's an odd, you think none of them are for it, but they don't know how to avoid it.
But I mean it's a kind of a continuation of what we've seen since the 2010 election and the new Republican Party that now swept into Congress. The Tea Party faction in the House has bedeviled the leadership from the time they arrived in January 2011, and we continue to see that. I mean, it's interesting, Scott Walker making those comments that you referred to. I mean, Scott Walker knows the consequences of
he got an attempted recall. Right. I mean, he went down this road and he fought.
And he was, I mean, chastened may be too strong a word, but he took away from that experience that he had made mistakes tactically, if not strategically, in the way he went about trying to get his agenda through. And he's operated in a different way. The state's still polarized there, but he's sending a warning to them.
Yeah, yes, it was interesting. He won, but he sort of said, okay, I get it. Right. Let's change the conversation. Okay, you guys are going to come back. We're going to talk this crazy Virginia race. Every week you're not sure which candidate.